At 4ZZZ, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal and Jagera people. We acknowledge that their sovereignty over this land was never ceded.
And we stand in solidarity with them.
You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ, amplifying the trans and gender non-conforming voices of Brisbane and beyond.
Good morning, me engine. This is Sean, your favourite abomination about town. My pronouns are kicking in your door, flinging a glass of brandy in the fire, and making you watch me make out with your mother. She, her, in other words. I'm here today with...
Hazel, hi. No joke prepared. She, her. It's just I've never seen the extended version of she, her, which is all that extra detail.
Well, you know, I mean, it's the original she, her that has just kind of been whittled down over time.
Right.
So, my darlings, dear me engine, due to some interesting turns of events, we have taken over the broadcast. So you are going to hear the dulcet tones of two adorable trans women.
Absolutely.
Just want to say, at the top of this, we are broadcasting from unceded Jagera and Turrbal land. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a lovely chat this morning about a whole bunch of stuff. Believe it or not, we are actually very lucky to have Hazel in studio.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Our girl in Spain, international travelling, woman of mystery.
Right, all of those things.
All of those things.
No, what I am is someone who spent a little bit of time in Spain, and I had a nice time, and it was very good. But we did think it would be interesting to discuss what it's like to travel when you're trans, and a lot of the sort of what you have to do in order to be safe as a trans person overseas, and a lot of the sort of nuances and differences, because of course trans people are not a monolith. Mm-hmm. Everyone transitions in a different way, and that's also going to affect how you travel. So I'm keen to talk about that. It should be exciting.
Yeah, so everything from the practicalities of the sort of the day-to-day to some of the more logistical questions to the how you would do research, in even some conversations around documentation. I have an odd story about how I had to get my passport, which I will share with everyone. It involves maybe a little bit of emotional blackmail of government employees, but hey, doesn't matter how you get there once you get there.
Amen.
Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Meanjin, Brisbane and beyond.
Transmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music and events.
Every Tuesday from 9am till 10am.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9am till 10am on 4ZZZ.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Sean, your favourite abomination about town, and my pronouns are the gateway for both men and women to discover their queerness.
Wow.
She, her.
That's great. Hi, my name's Hazel, and I can't think of another pun. I'm sorry. My name is... my pronouns are she, her. I'm off track. Take over.
Okay, so, dear listeners, I did bamboozle Hazel there a little bit. We had a little bit of a little chat about some topics that maybe might be a little bit risque for broadcast, about experiencing interacting in intimate spaces with cisgendered folks and the complications that brings. Mm-hmm. So, my darlings, you are listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. I will apologise for my husky voice this morning. I'm a little bit gravelly. For anyone else who was there, I was at the absolutely transcendent Trixie Mattel show on Sunday night. On a school night, I was standing at the railing on the balcony in my 8-inch heels. Now let me tell you about when you are a tall girl like me and you're wearing 8-inch heels, safety rails suddenly become not safety rails, and just like a thing that bumps into your knee on occasion.
Right.
So despite the danger of 90 kilos of muscular athletic trans woman falling 2 stories down to crush some girlies. It was a magnificent night.
Well, that's fantastic.
And I, of course, screamed along with all of the songs and danced my heart out. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that might have been the first time I ever wore pink.
Get
Yeah,
out. No.
I think it was the first...
Really?
Yeah,
First
I
time
mean,
you wore
like,
pink?
do I look like I wear pink? No, I don't.
I guess.
But yeah, it was a delight. So anyone else who was there at the Trixie Mattel show,
Wow.
was it magnificent vibes?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. I have to hand in my queer credentials. I had no idea she was here.
Yeah, I know, right? It's wild. But like a Sunday night gig at the Tivoli? Like, what the hell?
Wow, that's amazing.
So, yes. Today, we're actually not going to be talking about international jet setting, that international jet setting queer folk.
Absolutely.
We're talking about another international jet setting queer folk, the magnificent Hazel.
Hello.
Our girl in Madrid.
That's me.
So you've actually just gotten back from extended period overseas. How long were you away for?
I was away for right between 5 and 6 months. I had the opportunity to study over there.
Mm-hmm.
My university here, JMC Academy, that I'm studying music at, had a relationship with another university, and I got to trade one semester for another. And I had an amazing time over there. It was very, very, very fun. I met a lot of amazing people. And I got a nice chance to be in another place in a way that it wasn't not being a tourist, but it was certainly a lot deeper than sort of a 2-week come around, see what's there, head home again.
Let's get some brass tacks out of the way, because
Sure.
I'm sure the listeners are actually very interested about context in that sort of like, international travel, something I'd like to do.
Yes.
What is Hazel's experience, but also what are the parameters with which Hazel had to approach it?
Very good point.
What's the status of your documentation, if you don't mind, obviously?
So obviously with travel, trans people are all different. And for me, I have my passport and my documentation all still list me as my assigned gender at birth, which is male. And they also all list my dead name and everything like that.
Ugh.
Yeah, good times. I would
So,
say...
everybody do it. You can do that with me as well. Can we all
Yeah.
give Hazel an official...
Thanks, guys. I really felt it.
Yep.
So there's that. I would say that I'm generally a pretty feminine appearing person.
Absolutely.
As part of my transition, I have breasts. There's these kinds of aspects, and in general, I would say that, especially when traveling, my voice is more masculine. I'm not someone who's done vocal training or anything like that.
Also, all that aircon sucks.
Yeah, amen. Getting off those flights, I felt...
Stay hydrated, my darlings.
I felt like people, a cave diver could explore my sinuses. It was like a rock cave in there. But those are the parameters that I traveled under. So what that means is I'm going through airports and I'm going to other countries with documentation that lists me as a Mr. and with a name that honestly my dead name registers very masculine, which is always a good time. But also, going through airport scanners then with breasts and stuff like that.
The old machine that assigns your gender when you step into it. I have a particular love of... So whenever I go to Brisbane Airport, so often I'll have friends coming in and out interstate, and I love picking them up, and I love picking up people at the gate. I love standing at the gate and seeing them come up the ramp.
Exactly,
It's a
like a
delight.
movie.
It's a wonderful thing. And
Do you ever bring a sign?
No, but I usually stand there giving them the look. And
good.
There's definitely the rush into each other's arms. The public
perfect.
affection between queer folk is always one of those things I delight in.
Yep.
But I make a habit of wearing outfits that would be described by shit male riders as she breasted boobily through the airport security system.
Yeah.
So the occasions where I've stepped into, the big magnetic one where you got to stand like you're like a cowboy at high noon about to do shootouts.
Ready to draw. Yeah.
Yeah. Standing in that one, and you can see the hand of the technician go over to the panel with male and female. And obviously male is on top, the first option, of course.
Yeah.
And there's been so many occasions where I've seen someone's hand go to it and go to one button and then go to the other button and then go back to the other button. And I'm like, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, it's a good, be confused.
It kind of is a good feeling, because I literally had that exact same experience.
Yep.
And I tried to personally dress down for my travel, because I knew all my documentation was male. Last thing I want is an issue. So I was like, I'm just wearing my flannel, which unfortunately succeeds in making me look much more like a lesbian than a man. Which is not inaccurate.
Look at that stone butch walking through security.
Exactly. But I was standing there. The guy standing at the scanner was training someone else, and then was directing her to push certain buttons. And then I watched as he sort of did a triple take at me before selecting the one to move
bless
forward.
them, poor cisgendered folk.
Yeah.
I keep reminding myself that, like, Dear God, please give me the strength and patience to recognise that cisgendered folks' lives are very narrow, and it's hard for them sometimes.
There are people out there who still use Internet Explorer. They haven't moved on to other browsers. We have to understand that this is the way some people live their life, and they're doing their best, and that's
tragic.
Okay.
We should probably start a charity or something
to eliminate Explorer.
Piggyback that onto all the various causes we support.
Yeah,
but anyway, please,
but yes,
continue.
I'd like to move on to sort of talking about how to approach traveling, because your situation is going to be different from mine, almost definitely. And it's kind of a tough thing to talk about, but we all deserve to live authentically and as who we are. But the reality is that the world's an inconsistent place.
Very.
And sometimes your safety is going to conflict.
And it's
with
also
that.
inconsistently inconsistent in the sense that
yes,
so much of these systems are down to the interpretation of the individual applying them.
For sure. You never know how someone's going to see you as well. So you sometimes, if you want to do travel, particularly it's dependent on where you're going, you will have to make some compromises for how you present yourself or for how you're going to go about it. And for me, that situation meant sort of dressing down, dressing inconspicuously, and sort of moving through as quickly as I could. And in my case, that worked out for me. The thing that I'm going to say is the most important is you just need to research. You need to research your butt off if you want to travel. And we actually have some wonderful resources to talk about as far as that goes. I can get into them in more detail, and I'll come into that later.
We might do a little bit of a cheeky music break before we delve down further. But just to remind everyone that, while in this capitalist hellscape where we are living hand to mouth and in some cases other things to mouth as well in order to survive, we are not advocating for people to compress who they are and minimize who they are. And the idea of international travel right now just feels like a completely alien concept to me. Pre-transition and before all of the business with awful people running the US, I used to spend quite a bit of time bouncing back and forth between here and the States. And I loved that. But, obviously now it's like, there's no damn way I'm going there now, not for at least a few more years.
For sure.
But it is important to sort of understand the context about the guidelines of this can apply to you in your day-to-day and about how you navigate the spaces that you exist in and your awareness of them.
Oh my God.
Actually, you know what? I think I might like the long format.
I like it too. I just hope you don't get sick of us. I hope you get sick of us.
I hope you're like, oh, God.
You get sick of us as quick as you can.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to set up some sort of battle royale with the other show hosts.
Good, yeah.
Of two people enter, one person leaves, and it's like whoever,
For sure. When Workers' Power comes in later... Okay. First things first. We're losing that fight.
I would not try and take Bill.
We're losing.
Real talk. Bill from Workers' Power. There is no way I'm stepping into a greased-up cage match with Bill because he looks like he's got some mongrel in him. There is no way. But I feel like maybe we could do some sort of cage match to decide who gets airtime.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah. Let's talk to station manager about it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
This is Transmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Sean, your favourite abomination about town, and my pronouns are dehydrated, unmoisturised, and veering into your lane. She, her.
Hi, my name is Hazel, and my pronouns are tending to their wounds after a terrible cage match. She, her.
Yeah!
I tried to take over as host, stuck on co-host still. Didn't make it.
Stuck on co-host, that's right.
Next time.
That's right. That's it. I'm a tall girlie. I got the reach advantage. My darlings, yes, we have taken over the station because of, cage match shenanigans.
Yeah, usual stuff.
Yeah. So, my darlings, we have been talking about international travel. Now, obviously, again, international travel might seem like a pipe dream at the moment, but contextually there's actually some really interesting things to consider about it. We've been talking about how there's as trans people living visibly in the world, that we very often have to limit ourselves in the way that we're seen, which frankly sucks.
It does.
For the sake of our safety and the inconsistencies of all the different ways that the world operates.
Yeah.
And Hazel made the excellent observation that one of the most important things when traveling or when encountering new spaces ultimately, is the importance of research.
Mm-hmm. That's that. If you're going somewhere new, you have to look in advance at what it's going to be like when it's there. Just sort of general impressions, even sometimes the anecdotal evidence of someone you know is not really going to cut it. And that was definitely the case for me with a lot of it. But I have some excellent resources if you guys like. First of all, and I'm sure a lot of people who have considered travelling will know this, is Smart Traveller, which is the Australian government website which offers you sort of generalised travel advice. Obviously, I looked at this, and it's a great one to look at for the general state of the world as well. I know that there was some talk around them when they put America on like a... they put USA on a potential hazard list.
Yeah, but of course
they retracted this.
because the Australia really does love a strongman protector, and our foreign policy is very much geared around capitulating to a daddy to look after us.
Yes.
I'm sure that would have been seen very much as a provocative move to suggest that there is danger for non-conforming folks over there.
Yeah, which brings me to my first con of Smart Traveller, which is that it's not necessarily reliable when it comes to queer folk. It's sort of, I would say that it somewhat undervalues some of those risks where it's not obviously risky, it probably won't say anything. So it has that sort of limited depth, but what it does have is a wide range of information and talks about a lot of different destinations, and what it will also do is provide you travel-specific advice, which is very handy. But to move on to things that I think are more specifically catered to folks like you and I and our wonderful audience is the Human Rights Watch's Outlawed. So that's a project where they sort of overview the international state of LGBTQIA plus rights. So you've got general information, you've got the sort of current targets and goals of Human Rights Watch as far as queer rights go overseas. And it also features multiple interactive maps where you can click on different countries and you can see the current states and the profiles of individual countries, which is fantastic. I really love a resource like this. It's detailed. It's based on the sort of legal side of things, your rights legally in these places. But I will say it's not travel specific. So it's going to be a bit tough to know how it is traveling into those locations. It's also unclear how regularly they update. So it's not obvious how recent your information is going to be.
Certainly valuable information to just be aware of. I mean, I know that it is quite a confronting thing to consider the fact that existing as this in 72 countries around the world is considered illegal. That is a confronting thing to consider.
It is a little upsetting.
Although I do like to, flip that around and think that, I'm a danger to society in 72 countries around the world. That's a nice thought. I'm like, that's
a nice
right.
Thought. Yeah,
that's right. You should be afraid of this.
Not to make a pun out of something serious, but also the way in which it's transient. It changes. The laws in these countries don't stay the same.
Every time someone does a pun on this show, I have this sudden pang, and I'm like, I need to check on Alexis. Are you channeling Alexis spirit?
You better
believe. Okay? Alexis, are you okay?
Actually, every pun is fed straight to me via Alexis via earpiece. Yeah. And I've got one more resource here, which is the ILGA Trans Mapping Report. So ILGA is the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association. And it produces this report every few years. And this thing is a monster. It's big. It's currently on its 4th edition. And it details the impact of laws and policies on trans and genderqueer people in all 143 UN... I shouldn't say all, I don't know if it's all. In 143 UN member states. So... the pros of this, it uses lawyers and activists to collect its information. It's got a wide base of information. The other thing is it provides you information on what your obstacles are going to be in these different countries for the residents there and for people traveling. But it also includes, and this is, I think, so important, places where it is de facto illegal to be trans.
Right, that's one of those interesting distinctions that... that conservative people hide behind the thinnest veneer, the tiniest paper shield of like, oh well, we're not saying that.
Yeah, there's no law against trans people. There's no law
against being trans.
Yeah.
Why stop hitting yourself? Why have you got this persecution complex?
For sure. To kind of expand on that, the thing I bumped into the most when I was looking up places that I was traveling through or looking at. Is that there won't be any sort of law that specifically highlights trans or any sort of gender gender fuckery as illegal, but it will say that cross-dressing is illegal. So that's where that kind of line gets drawn in a lot of these places. But also just sort of, if gayness is illegal, they're going to see your existence as a trans person as something inherently gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty insidious, the idea of, like, not only are they going to arrest you for being you, they're also going to very specifically invalidate your experience in the process.
You don't exist and you're going to jail for it.
There's like, it's just that 1-2 punch of like...
Yeah. A little bit of a con with the trans mapping report is it's 4 years out of date now. The last one was in 2020, and I couldn't really find out when the next one is going to be produced. So some of those informations are going to be a little bit out of date. I mean, for context, for anyone tuned in with world politics, like the last one that got released to this is when Biden was just sworn into the US. A lot's changed. So
a lot's changed.
Keep in mind that.
Just 1 or 2 things have changed.
Yeah, just a couple. And it's also just huge. It's dense with information. If you don't enjoy reading through big, dense legal documents, you might have a bit of a trouble getting through this one. But that's research. That's what I'm talking about, is finding these kinds of options that are not just going to tell you about these countries, but are going to specifically go out of their way to inform you about your rights as a queer person in these countries.
I mean, like you said, it is one of those major components of the entire equation. Obviously, depending on what a person's status is, if they are medicalizing their transition, if they are living publicly, if they are the sort of individual who is skewing towards binary representation. Obviously, individuals who are non-binary and agender, it is a different circumstance altogether with that as well.
Yeah.
I am an individual that is sort of skewing very strongly in one direction, or at least attempting to. And not to suggest that that is the only way to be trans. Absolutely not. That's just my
for sure
personal expression.
The fact of the matter is, the people who look to victimize you through these kinds of things that we're talking about, they don't really particularly care in what form you take. It's if you are in any way fighting against what society has chosen for you to be, you're at risk of this stuff.
Absolutely.
But I don't mean to hold on to the negatives.
No.
This is a pinch of realism.
So obviously other elements, things like documentation. Obviously, the changing in the laws around, in Queensland about having birth certificates changed has been magnificent. Thank you to the previous, state administration for giving that to the community in the hope that it would be enough to keep them in their jobs, but.
Not quite.
It was welcome, but not quite. I'd already changed my gender markers on my documentation because I wasn't born here in Australia. That's right, dear listeners. I am one of those terrifying immigrants that you hear about who is stealing Australians' jobs.
Yeah. I was wondering why I wasn't hosting this episode.
I know, right?
You've
That's
stolen
right.
it from me.
DEI, right here. So I was born overseas, and I've been benefiting from the ingrained white privilege of Australia. So that's right. I'm an immigrant who is stealing your white privilege, stealing your jobs, stealing your women on occasion as well. So definitely something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
So the country that I'm from has self-nomination laws, which would have been magnificent. And I went through that process, paid my fees, did all the things, jumped through the hoops. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But when I came to updating all my documentation here in Australia, a lot of things were very easy. There was a couple of awkward moments with my bank where they were a little bit bamboozled by the notion of it. But I walked them through it, and that was fine. Other places for like phone companies, they were just like, "Oh yeah, whatever. I don't care. I don't want to see your forms. It's not my business."
Are you paying us? Like, we keep the money flowing. We'll call you whatever.
Although I did run into a particular snag with my passport, getting it updated. So what happened was that I had, I'd made my submission, getting a new passport, etc., and they then contacted me and told me that they would not issue it with the female gender marker on it. I spoke to a lovely staff member there who was very sympathetic in sort of explaining that as I was a foreign national who has dual citizenship, the documentation that they gleaned the gender marker from is not my birth certificate. It's from my citizenship papers.
Right.
And of course, I became an Australian citizen back when I was living as a man.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, so that's the marker on it. I very politely explained what I look like.
Yeah.
The way that I present into the world, that all of my documentation and everything says female.
Yep.
But that this one thing, that if I am going through the airport in Dubai to get back into Europe to see my aging grandmother, the complication that it presents, where everything else about me is living as a woman, but then there's one little thing, that's an issue.
For sure.
And this and the staff member in the passport office was like, because they'd initially said, oh, you might need to contact the Department of Home Affairs. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really not going to get into that. But yeah, so they said, like, let me talk to the supervisor, put me on hold, came back and said, don't worry, we're going to do it.
Sick.
There is flexibility within those systems, dear listeners. Advocate for yourself. Explain the situation. Don't be shy about saying, I don't want to be detained in an international airport where it's illegal to be trans.
Yes, absolutely.
You are putting me in a situation where I am at risk. So long as you are jumping through the reasonable hoops and the hoops that have been set out, and obviously my circumstance was very individual and unique, but I think it is worth noting to everyone that, you know, you should find it in yourself to advocate, because there are absolutely people in the world who they'll go to their supervisor and they'll be like, this isn't fair and this isn't right.
Yep.
And we should absolutely grant this request.
For sure. I think that most people, genuinely most people, who don't have an understanding of trans people, of queer people, who might not at face value make a choice that supports them, simply just don't have any experience with them. If you're on the phone or you're talking to one of those people and you show them what your situation is, you show them that you're a person and that their choices could harm you, I genuinely do feel that most people don't want that to happen.
Absolutely.
I think that's a very good angle.
Yeah, I was at a social event recently and there was a really weird moment where I realised, why does everybody look really tense? And I'm like, oh, that's right, they've never spoken. They've never even met a trans person before. Of course they're terrified. Not because they think I'm terrifying, but because they don't want to mess up. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They're curious. They want to ask about it, but they're afraid of this very internet-pilled discourse of like, you didn't put a space between the word trans and woman, so you're getting cancelled. And it's like, whoa. Let's take a moment here and assess the content of people's heart and the content of their messaging, and that language is imperfect and that we are all in a process of discovery. So obviously when I realised that I needed to be a little bit more kind and gentle to the poor cis folks, and let them know that they're not going to hate crime me. It was fine. And I genuinely do think that the vast majority of the people in the world are willing to support us. It's just that fear. That fear around of making a mistake leads to then fear of us.
That idea that we might jump down their throats for a simple error or for something like that.
Transforming into the angry trans woman, blah, 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 blah.
Frankly speaking, if someone ever really does give you hell for accidentally misgendering once, that's just, you know, a rude person. Right? We've got to move on from that. 98% of the time, the people you interact with are not like that. We know what a mistake is. We know the difference between an honest mistake and someone trying to aggravate us.
Oh, absolutely.
We can tell.
I mean, and look, and to be fair, I mean, if anyone has read my Substack, The Abomination About Town, I talk a lot about how I am an incurable, get out the swear jar, an incurable fuck-up in the world. And if I want to express that vulnerability in order to gain compassion about how it's okay to be making mistakes, I'm not going to care if somebody sirs me and, you know, flubs it and be like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's fine, babes. You know that it was a mistake. It's fine. You know what you were supposed to do, and it's fine. You'll be fine next time. You know, just get the line right next time.
And you know,
you don't stop the show, right? You don't stop the show.
The show goes on.
The show goes on.
The social
just
interaction
keep
continues.
Going.
That said, if someone then, you know, repeatedly makes the error, that's when we
And then
trend
you're
into
like,
that territory of
"All
like,
right,
okay,
I'm gonna have a conversation
I
with
might
you
have to
about
talk
this."
to you about this.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's,
Look,
people
it's
make
different.
mistakes.
We are coming from a position of like privilege in the sense that we are both outgoing individuals. We are currently on a broadcast medium.
Yeah, true.
And so we have the confidence in ourselves to talk about that sort of stuff, to advocate for ourselves. And I know that that's not true for everyone. So my darlings out there, anyone who would feel that they would be too nervous to ever say boo to anyone, remember, you have that power within yourself, and there are others around who can help you.
Peter Sterling, the only man in the world who's given birth to a child.
Someone might say, oh, you're a bit of a queer. And they'd be right.
I wanted to talk about something real quick.
Yeah, fire away.
Sean, bathrooms. Aren't they fun?
Oh. Yeah.
Speaking for myself here, I always find a great deal of stress with the idea of going into the bathroom that I feel suits my gender identity. And I still find that in Australia, in particular, I have that stress. But one thing that I found interesting whilst I was in Spain, and I don't know if this is a Spanish thing, if this is a European thing, or if I just was in a more international city than Brisbane happens to be, that feeling just kind of went away.
Really?
It was weird. People just seemed more comfortable with it. I had an experience, and this was... I should be honest here, this is Portugal, not Spain. These are two different countries, but speaking honestly, when you travel between them, you don't tend to notice that you've traveled between them. It's a very, very open border, and culturally there's a lot of mixing. But I went to Portugal via bus, and on that bus I was, exhausted. It happened to be Halloween the night before, and in Madrid on Halloween you go clubbing. And so I had been clubbing on a rainy night wearing a corset and a skirt, and so I was...
Magnificent.
Thank you. And due to the line outside the club, I had been soaked to the bone. And then after getting far too drunk, I returned to my apartment to find that I had left my sort of skylight windows open and my room had been flooded.
Oh,
so
no.
I sorted out the flooding with the help of my lovely roommates, and then sort of had a shower, curled up on the dry quarter of my bed that I had left, and then at 6 a.m. hopped up again and hopped on a bus for 8 hours to Portugal. So you can imagine the state physically I was in.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I didn't look great. I was wearing a hoodie. I was a disheveled mess. And I hop off of this bus, and, you've, as a trans woman, you've got the maths you do in your head about bathrooms and how it works, and you're like, well, haven't shaved, bit of a mess, who's to say? I'm just going to go to the men's bathroom, because in my experience, I find in the men's bathroom, the worst case scenario I've had so far is a guy be like, whoa, am I in the right bathroom? And then I say yes. Or if I go in the women's bathroom, I fear perhaps someone will think I'm committing a crime. But so I go to do that in this situation, and I enter the men's bathroom, wherein an old man then suddenly grabs me by the shoulder, which you would think is a worrying situation, only for him to escort me to the women's bathroom to show me where it was, which is just a delightful experience.
Isn't that blessed and wonderful?
It was very, very sweet.
Oh, I adore that. No, I've always had a very complicated relationship with bathrooms, even from when I was a teenager. Because I transitioned much later in life, had decades of life living as a man. But, it was always a source of sort of amusement to my circle of friends about how particular I was about where I would go to the bathroom in public spaces. And I had built a little sort of internal resource map of the various places around Brisbane that had privacy, that were hygienic.
Should publish this map.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's long different now. But yeah, there was definitely a case of like which hotels are easily accessible bathrooms in lobbies that a member of the public could get to without, but they're like semi-not public, if you take my meaning.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Because they are sort of generally smaller, private, hygienic, off the beaten track. And, I sort of realised much later in life that a lot of the anxiety they felt around that was the fact that I was in the men's room and I did not like being in the men's room.
For sure.
So it's definitely a thing that I've, that I've experienced. Although, funnily enough, you say that, one of my favourite locations in this entire town this is going to be so damn niche, but hear me out. And I had the magnificent occasion to be there on the weekend at the Tivoli. The ladies' bathroom on the right hand side of the venue where the bar is there, that has the small powder room with the mirrors and the pictures and the couch and all that sort of stuff.
Classy.
It is this sort of anti-room to the toilets themselves is the most pure, magnificent energy of feminine vulnerability that exists. And I have always felt so immediately at peace and safe in that location.
Isn't that lovely?
Because of that thing, and that thing that I had shared to you earlier around the bathroom spaces for women and girls being places where women are allowed to be vulnerable and there is no fear of having that preyed upon.
Yeah.
And so I was, standing there 7 foot tall in my fluorescent pink dress with my giant heels on and a gaggle of very young enough that I would be their mother, girlies, saw my shoes and were like, oh my God, I love these. Where did you get these? These are great. I want these, da-da-da. And telling them about, how comfy these ones are and how I, spent the time looking and just this lovely interaction of young women that it was entirely, no preamble was needed.
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Those experiences that have always resonated with me in realizing that I'm like, this is the thing that I feel like I missed from my youth. The camaraderie of women in spaces where you're allowed to be vulnerable.
It is genuinely such a healing feeling because I've had that kind of experience too. And it's just like, I don't know, it's beyond just having someone being accepting of you. It's the context wherein other people have told you is a zone where you will feel absolutely no love from people, and then to have that sort of overwhelmingly overrided by people who genuinely want to connect with you.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
And funnily enough, I think it's one of those things, those spaces where vulnerability is allowed and not preyed upon, is a thing that is absent in men's lives. I don't think men realise...
The men's bathroom feels like a war zone.
Absolutely.
Dangerous.
There isn't an equivalent. And yes, there is a lot of really crappy conservative discourse around the sanctity of the locker room. And I'm like, the sanctity of the locker room is institutionalized bullying and terrorizing and power structures that people insist on maintaining. There isn't a safe space for men to be vulnerable in this way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not being an apologist for shit men's behavior. There's certainly a growing culture, and locally as well. Recently, the individuals behind Bloke's Advice and the Better Bloke charity, which is laughable that it's a charity because they absolutely reads as a grift of creating safe space for men. That it's okay to do
other
this.
than the world.
And it's coming to the safety of the world that they get to exist in. And it's coming to light that all the sort of internal social media groups that the likes of Bloke's Advice and Better Blokes charity are actually just closed circles where men get to be misogynistic, homophobic, and promoting all the worst base urges they have under the guise of, we're just letting blokes be blokes.
We'll hear you out.
Blokes. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. I've lived as a bloke for a significant amount of time, and I've existed in spaces like that, and it is vile.
Yeah, it's
and there is this terrible thing that's happening at the moment where young cisgendered men are being grifted into thinking that these sorts of things are fine and normal because there isn't a space where vulnerability is allowed.
Yes, but I will say, one bathroom where vulnerability is most certainly not only allowed but encouraged. Have you seen the women's bathroom at the Press Club bar?
No.
There is a toilet stall with 2 toilets right next to each other.
So we could hold hands?
Absolutely. And it blew me away. I've been enchanted by it ever since.
Well, my darlings, if you want to come and hang out... maybe I shouldn't promote...
Maybe not a call to action to crowd a women's bathroom.
Look, I really feel like I might be running into some Australian laws around broadcast standards of suggesting that
please no one
have an event where people attend and they can sit on a toilet next to me to urinate while we hold hands. That would be bad. I should not do that.
No urination at least.
Yeah. For all those armchair media monitors out there who are like frothing at the thought of me saying something controversial.
We don't mean it.
I don't mean that. I'm not going to do that. Don't be weird about it. It's a joke.
I have one other bathroom-related story from Spain.
Okay. Oh my God. All right. I didn't realize this was turning into the bathroom hour, but here we go.
It kind of is. I've got 2 bathroom stories. One's a very short one.
Go on.
Which is that in a Spanish gay club, I was waiting in line for the women's toilet, and
which is the place where you go to the bathroom in a gay club.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for the information.
Think about that, everybody. For those of you who don't, once you know, you know. Anyway, go on.
Well, maybe we're going to lead towards that because as I was waiting, it had been quite a long queue. The security guard, he walks into the women's bathroom, shouts a lot, and I didn't have the fluency to know what he was shouting, and then quickly every single stall opened and a pair of girls walked out of every single one, which was delightful.
You love to see it.
Isn't that great?
You love to see it.
I didn't feel that inconvenienced. I was like, good on them. It's fine by me.
It's certainly one of those things in the world that, hey, we're all just people trying to survive on a rock spinning through the void. Like,
amen.
You find it where you're going to find it.
Yeah. If your community comes from a gay club bathroom, then that's where your community comes from. Or in. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Anyway.
On that note, we're going to throw over to some music while we think of more ridiculous things to talk about. I will throw out... Okay, so here we go. Last year, much to my disappointment, I was going to go and see the Mountain Deer Worm Girls gig.
Oh, yeah.
That was at the Beardo? I think it was at the Beardo. Mm-hmm. I missed out on that because I got COVID and I missed out on Christmas, my mother's birthday, but most notably, I missed out on seeing Mountain Deer and Worm Girls.
That is so upsetting.
Friends of the show, Worm Girls, dear friends of the show. Also, I'm trying to... Okay, everybody, you're going to have to help me with this. Everybody, start messaging the Worm Girls, telling them that what they really need to do is to get all the obnoxious trans folk from Tranzmission in their music videos.
Yes.
Just doing unhinged witchy shit in the background.
I'm actually... Can I say this?
Yeah?
I'm in a Worm Girls music video.
Are you? Okay, well, I guess cage match is absolutely going to happen, and I am going to destroy you for that.
I'm a fragment in the background, but I'm there.
I am more than willing to be drenched in blood, naked, running through the forest in the background of a Worm Girls video.
You hearing this, Worm
Putting
Girls?
that out there.
Mm-hmm.
So get to it, Mianjin. Make that happen for me.
For sure.
How many genders are there?
I don't know. I just got here.
You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Sean, the Abomination About Town, and my pronouns are reclaiming mainstream Australian culture. She, her.
Wow. Hi, my name is Hazel, and my pronouns are being blinded by the flaming trees.
Yeah, okay, so, my darlings, if you've been listening on here or only just came in, the reason I played seminal Flame Trees by Cold Chisel was because when I listened to that song... It, to me, sounds like the story of a trans masculine person, a trans man, returning to the small country town and reckoning with the ghosts that still live there.
Yeah.
Notably, notably, the ghost of themselves. The person that they used to be and trying to find connection with the individuals who have remained.
I would say, like most normal people, when I heard from you that an iconic song by Cold Chisel was going to be very happily reinterpreted as a trans story, had some doubts. But I'm a complete convert.
Right. I'm sitting here, and in the other studio, Bill from Workers' Power, who's doing his show prep because he's super diligent, and he's like staring at the sky, nodding and singing the words, and like I'm watching this realization dawn upon him, like, oh my God, Jimmy Barnes, trans man?
Potentially.
Now, I am speaking from a place of humor and interpretation and, enjoying media the way that you want to enjoy media and what it speaks to you.
Yes.
That you are allowed to reinterpret things and how they fit for you. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's a beautiful song. I adore the imagery, but there is definitely lines in that to me speak to what, my own experience as a trans person, but speak to what I can have heard from my friends who are trans men about what their experience is. Mm-hmm. And this idea of, can't stop that long forgotten feeling of her. This being haunted by this persona that you lived as, that you were forced to live as.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, Australian Gothic, and all Gothic literature really, is it's ghost stories but without the actual supernatural. And that feeling of the vastness of rural Australia, and the haunted landscape, the ghosts that live there for us culturally, socially. It is a phenomenal feeling for anyone who's actually stood on the edge of the civilized, I'm doing air quotes when I say civilized Australia because that's a really bullshit thing to say, but the idea when you stand on the edge of population centres and look out into the vastness of it and you realise just how haunted this country is. And that is definitely a feature of this song, but it is, in my mind, a feature of transness.
Yeah.
And why I think things like Gothic literature fit so readily with our experiences.
For sure.
It's not just about the vibes of being a beautiful trans woman, in flowing robes, swanning around a Gothic castle. It's actually what that means sort of culturally.
Yeah.
For reckoning with the past.
I think something that this song sort of thematically has in common with the trans experience is just that kind of every social interaction, every part of your life kind of has this superimposed image over the top of it that you're kind of constantly juggling on top of what would otherwise be a fairly straightforward event.
Yeah, and the who needs that sentimental bullshit anyway? There's a real forget it. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to move on. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to live this life. I'm going to... It doesn't bear thinking about because there is no way that I can possibly pass the fact that I have lived as a different person and I have had to change that. And same with all these other little details in there about, sitting with friends and seeing who can tell the biggest lie, telling them that they look just the same.
Yeah, why do they look just the same in particular?
Yeah. All of that, and the imagery around, a girl falling in love
And also the fact that this girl mentioned in the story, she's not around.
She's not around.
Where did she go? I don't think the lyrics say at any point that she went away from town either. So I'm feeling a real strong...
there's a real strong vibe in my mind. And it's not the only song. There's a whole bunch of others. And, obviously on Tranzmission we spent a lot of time talking about what's happening currently in the politics and a lot of that's very heavy. We don't really get a lot of opportunity to wax lyrical about a little bit of silliness like this. It's certainly something I would like to do more of. So if anyone's enjoying things that are trans but didn't intend on being trans... Accidental transness. We'll figure out the name of this segment.
Yeah, there's a pun in there somewhere.
By all means, measure the station. Demand it. Demand me give the long-winded arts wanker explanation of why your favourite pop songs are actually secretly about trans people.
I can't wait to have an actual full-fledged argument
I will fight you
about whether or not Lady Gaga's GUI is an example of trans.
Oh yes, absolutely. So the question about representation of trans people in media is a really important one. We have this issue around, I grew up when there was no trans people in media. The only people who were trans were, in films were serial killers and the victims of serial killers. And yes, there is trans representation that exists in the world now, but it is still very overwhelmingly cisgendered. Not cisgendered. It's still overwhelmingly white. It is still overwhelmingly thin. It is overwhelmingly young. It is overwhelmingly... Binary, conventionally attractive. And I adore all of these trans artists, but it is very much of a particular stripe of transness and gender non-conforming. So I like the idea of taking media that exists and saying, oh, actually, no, this is mine now. I claim ownership of this. I am
for sure.
I'll plant that flag. Sure, you want to get colonial about stuff? I'll get colonial about stuff. Sorry, Cold Chisel is now... Songs about being Trans Masc.
Yeah, Cold Chisel is trans now. We've made that.
Flame Trees is trans.
Get the transvestigators in. No, that's so at the core of queer community as well. Like all the way back, this has been true for homosexual people as well. To be looking at these characters who are given nothing more than a quick little glance and to say, no, There's something there.
This is us. This is
I'm
ours.
taking that. Yeah.
Certainly, when you look into the art forms like drag and all those sorts of those performance mediums of taking gender and remixing it and hooking onto the tiniest little subtle clues and building all of this culture of subtle interpretation and nuance about gender and sexuality. So yeah, my darlings, go out into the world, listen to your favorite songs, think about and think real hard about whether or not they actually speak to your transness if you want. I mean, hell, we're going to get into a huge conversation about transness and the nature of nirvana. Kurt Cobain, there is a huge wealth of information online and discourse around the connection between Kurt Cobain and trans folk.
Oh, wow.
Certainly something that's fascinating.
Open Doors Youth Service is a Southeast Queensland support service for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and or intersex youth aged 12 to 24 and their families. Open Doors believes that all young people have the right to explore, experience and express their gender and sexuality in safe and supportive environments, and offers a range of programs and counselling services, as well as support services for parents of LGBTI youth and community education and training. For more information, visit their website at www.opendoors.net.au. Sponsors of 4ZZZ.
This is Tranzmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Sean, your Abomination About Town, and my pronouns are ruining your childhood. She, her.
My name's Hazel, and my pronouns are a bitter, sad Japanese man making the most beautiful, charming, lovely films known to man. She, her. Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, so we've had quite a few responses to my quite provocative statement that that Flame Trees is actually a Trans Masc anthem. And the idea that, in this age of lack of representation, we just need to start claiming things as ours. We've had quite a few people pop in and point out some other things. Yes, I believe Ponyo is a trans princess.
Natalia!
Do you want to... Yeah, thank you, Natalia.
You struck a chord with me there.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Immediately, I just hopped on Wikipedia and opened up. Because, immediately I got a feeling and I was like, I agree. I need to know why I agree. And so I opened up the Wikipedia and I've been looking at this plot summary and oh my god. So for anyone who was confused about my pronouns joke earlier as well, I'll say I'm not now identifying as an old Japanese man. It's a Studio Ghibli film. It's a beautiful animated film. And the creator famously, despite creating such beautiful children's movie, is a quite sour person to speak to. But in Ponyo, there's a lot of trans theming, and you were so right for pointing that out, Natalia. Ponyo, she's a creature of the sea, and she wants to be human.
Like me.
Yeah, like all of us, really.
Absolutely. One day I will go back from whence I came.
Absolutely, and we look forward to it. But Ponyo is a creature of the sea who wishes to be human, and her father is absolutely against it and fights very hard to make sure that she can't be. But she rejects it. She refuses to let him call her by her birth name. She wants to be called Ponyo. And it's just, oh man, I'm really feeling it, because then her mother steps in and allows her to become human and to stay on the land as a human. And what allows her to stay on the land is whether or not... sorry, I've forgotten the character's name. Hold on. Oh, shoot.
I suppose the takeaway from all of this is the reminder that you are the audience. The media is yours. As an artist myself, I'm putting it into the world, and yes, I deserve the credit for the things that I make. But how it resonates in your heart is yours. I don't own that. Mm-hmm. Do with it what you want.
I really appreciate that whilst I'm sort of rambling ecstatically about the plot here, you just sort of smoothly come over the top and you're like, here's a message to take home from this.
Just trying to do a little bit of a take home, knowing that we have a mere 9 minutes left of the broadcast.
I will simply say that the thing that allows Ponyo to be human and stay on land is the love of Sasuke, who acts correctly, and through the community and the support of others, Ponyo is allowed to transition into being a human.
Yeah,
I'm this deeply moving.
There it is. It's everywhere. Our experiences. That's what I find so unusual, and certainly about what my own arts practice is with my writing and theatre making, is communicating just how much overlap there is in the world between the trans experience and the cisgendered experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that it is the same, but we share far more. We have far more in common than not. Mm-hmm. And this barrier that has been erected between trans people and cis people it needs to come down. It needs to fall. There is, you know, we all love, we all live, we all work, we all trying to find connection, we all trying to create meaning in our lives, legacy, family, community. These are things that are incredibly common and incredibly human, and there's very little difference fundamentally. So go out there, find the songs that you love, reinterpret them how you want them to be yours. So in the last couple minutes, we've had a lovely time here doing an extended show. In fact, we've had a couple of extended shows lately. Obviously, big shout-outs to Zeitgeist and big shout-outs to Workers' Power.
Whoop, whoop.
Bill very kindly actually want to throw that out there. Any individuals, any trans and gender non-conforming individuals who would typically tune out at 10 a.m., stick around, listen to Workers' Power. Bill is what I would consider sort of gold standard for allyship. You know, standing at a rally, and then Bill comes, you know, stomping over, and he's watching the crowd, he's making sure people are safe, and straight away he's like, you'll need to take my radio show, you'll need more hours, you'll need more airtime, you know. So show the love to our man Bill, because he certainly shows us love behind the scenes on the reg.
It's a beautiful altruistic move, and also saves us what would have undoubtedly been a terrible cage match.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because when it comes to cage match, Bill is on our team.
He's
just
tough.
going to put that out there.
He's a tough guy.
All you other shows on Z. Bill and the girlies are going to go and get you. So obviously, the sprawling conversation today around travel, around safety, around keeping yourself aware of your surroundings, all of this is, at the end of the day, the world can be a scary and dark and difficult place. And it would be very easy to feel isolated. It would be very easy to feel as though there is no one who understands. But genuinely, my darlings, there are people there, even if they're just weirdos on the radio like us. So, you know, if you do feel alone in the world in that way, there is ways that you can connect. You can come down to Triple Z and you can sign on as a volunteer. You can become, get yourself a subscription, get involved in the community. It is not terribly expensive. There are definitely people here who are part of your world and want to spend that time with you. In these last couple of weeks that things have been quite difficult here in Queensland, I've really noticed the difference in the lives of the individuals who are community connected in the trans community, trans and gender non-conforming community, and those who aren't. The isolation that I'm seeing in those individuals has been really rough. And it's because they don't have people to turn to who will understand and just be like, oh yeah, that's fucked up. Because having to explain why something is fucked up is incredibly labor intensive.
Yeah.
And isolating.
And to talk to someone who might, at that start of the conversation, feel that they've got nothing to connect to with what you're saying, even though we know there's everything in the world to connect to there. But to not be able to have that straight away can be exhausting, for sure.
So we've been talking about lots of little things that you can do to make your life easier in regards to travel, checking websites, doing that. But at the end of the day, the biggest single thing that you could do that would have the most impact, connect to other people in your community. Get out and make some friends. There's plenty of meetups. There's organisations like Triple Z. There's organisations like Open Doors. There's all sorts of things happening in your town.
Check out the Facebook events. See what's going on. There's all kinds of, there's picnics, there's meetups. There's, if you're out regional like me, if you're near Ipswich, go to Banshee's Bar. Is
Ipswich considered regional?
It is. You may not consider it so, and I do see that. There's a lot of urban sprawl, but it is considered regional.
Wow.
We're eligible for regional arts funding. So there you go.
Lovely. Very nice. So my darlings, we're going to sign off for the hour. Take care, my darlings. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Tranzmission. See you next Tuesday, 9 to 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.